Hi, this is May.
And I'm Joy.
Welcome to the QWERTY Writing Life Podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives.
May and I are friends, writers, and creatives who want to share our endeavors out loud.
On this podcast, we're here to encourage each other, and you too,
and share tools we've discovered or made up.
So you can follow your passions with a little support. So grab your tea
or your coffee,
and let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so glad that you're here this week because we have a very special announcement to make, and we have just been looking so forward to sharing this with you guys. So we are honored, humbled, and ecstatic to announce that we will be speakers for the 2020 Women in Publishing Summit next year, March 2nd through 8th. This year's theme for the online summit is Dream Big, which is a perfect theme. I love it. And our interview will cover the topic, how to find and keep a critique partner, dream big together. This is a huge honor for us, and we are just so excited. We cannot wait to share more information with you. As soon as we get more, we will be passing that along to you guys. But in the meantime, you can check out last year's amazing lineup of speakers and be on the lookout for more on next year's. We'll drop the link in the show notes, so be sure to check it out. It is the Women in Publishing Summit.
And this might seem a little anticlimactic since we have that really big news, but we'll talk about our creative weeks now.
Oh, hey, there's nothing anticlimactic about that.
So, Joy, what did you do this week?
So this week I've been spending a lot of time reimagining how our book will look, because as you guys know, we are writing a critique partner book. It's called Finders Keepers, and it is still tentatively scheduled to publish later this year. We look forward to sharing some information with you guys about that once we have things nailed down. But yeah, so the creative thing is just trying to take a book that we've already written and reimagine it in a slightly different format. We decided, thanks to some great advice from a mentor of ours, we decided to change up the format of it to something a little different and a little quirky. Because you know what? We are quirky. I think it fits. So that's been my creative week, is just trying to envision that and then kind of make bits and pieces of it happen. So what about you? Tell me all about it.
Well, I just want to comment on our structure for just
please do.
a second. I'm so thankful for people who will read our stuff and will look at it and kind of help us make it even better. And it just is a reminder that the creative community it's a community. It's not just one person. Like, you can definitely learn and benefit from sharing your work with others. So that's that. But what I did this week, I did some alcohol ink again. And this time, because I had to show up and practice and make sure that my stuff was just as good as my kids. So I don't know if you didn't listen to last week, my kids totally showed me up. Both of them had some beautiful alcohol ink pictures that were way better than mine. So I got into the practice mode again and got to do a little bit more. So I'm going to show you what I did. You can look at my Instagram page if you want to see my kids, because they have I put theirs on there because it was just so darn impressive. It was just really impressive.
It really was.
I got this piece for our YouTube viewers. This is one that I'm super proud of. And
that is beautiful.
I have an idea, but I'm not going to tell you about it just yet. But I really am pleased with how that one turned out. And also this week we had a couple of little pieces in our book that just needed an extra touch up. And so I touched up those as far as content goes while Joy was working on structure. So that's what I did for the creative week.
Yay! That was a pretty amazing creative week.
Yes.
And yes,
in the middle of stomach bugs and sicknesses and stuff, but
we hate those stomach bugs. They are the worst.
I think everybody has them. It's rampant right here in South Mississippi right now.
Yeah. we are already starting with the flu here, which is like, really already? But yes, so that's a lot of fun. Anyway,
Yikes.
so tonight's topic is actually tackling the cons of creativity, which at first sounds a little bit negative, but the good thing is we can twist these cons and turn them into pros. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. So why this topic? All right, here's what happened. I totally misunderstood a previous topic. So we're going to take my lack of understanding and we're going to come up with a totally new topic from that. So there you go. Life gives you lemons, you make lemonade.
It's so honest and real, and I just love that. I love how this topic came to be.
I know, it really is. And I feel like that speaks to the creative life in general, because I mean, how many times do we come up with something creative that stems from just a misunderstanding or I was researching for this and I stumbled upon this, or things like that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Or I
So,
messed this up, so I'm gonna,
oh
you
yes,
found a way to turn it into something beautiful. So,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yes, I love
I
that.
love it.
So, as I was researching for this other topic, wrongly researching for this other topic, I found a post somewhere, and guys, I really did try to find this again, and I cannot find it, and I can't remember exactly what words I even typed in, so I am so sorry if this rings a bell, please send it my way. But basically, it was talking about some negative traits that creatives tend to have. And there were 3 that were on there, and I'm going to share some of those tonight. But here's the thing, being a creative is great, but we do have some downsides, and I feel like that's anybody. Any profession, anything that you do on a regular basis, there are great things about it, but you might also have some negative traits that kind of come along with whatever that is that you spend most of your time doing. And we think that knowing that and being prepared for that is half the battle, because when you understand the challenges that you have, that can help you face and avoid them, actually, or twist them on their heads, like we're going to show you tonight. So May actually has the first one that we're going to chat about.
Yeah. So one of the things that's in my life that I consider maybe one of my creative cons, but is necessary to my creativity, is that I have too many feelings.
All the feels.
I have all the feels. I feel so much. And in order to make an observation on something, you must first observe not only the action, but the motivation for it too, right? And before you can do that, you kind of have to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and feel what they feel. So I feel like it's a huge, I feel like it's a huge, I think that this is a huge step in my creative process, just being able to have empathy for people and to take on emotions, but also it can be a bit of a downfall in real life. So I dwell on the issues that are presented to me until it alters my mood sometimes. Like stories that I've read and characters that I've written, like their issues become my issues. And so that's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
I could talk about fictional people as if they are real people. And I have literally had conversations where I have said in real life, I know a girl who ... and I continue on with the conversation, and the girl that I'm talking about is in a fictional book. It's true.
I'm so glad that I'm not the only one. Just saying.
I have you too.
Yes.
Okay. So, and sometimes I don't even realize it until I'm halfway in the conversation, and then I'm committed. Like I can't just back up and be like, oh wait, hold on, that's not real. So it still proves the point that I'm trying to make in the conversation anyway. So, but even beyond books, like my disposition can alter depending on who's around me. So one of my professors in class after I graduated from college told me that she always knew if the class was going well or not because of my reaction. She called me her barometer. And yeah, I had no idea. And guys, I think I'm slick. Like in the moment, I think I'm real slick about how I'm hiding my emotions and everything, but it's not true. I just have a very, very thin veneer. And, and the truth always shines through. So I thought that was kind of interesting how when she told me that, it just kind of played right on into this stuff that I'm realizing about myself. But I cry at like animal rescue commercials. Like, I cannot watch a sad
yeah.
dog movie. Cannot do it.
Nope.
It like puts me into a depressed state for like 3 days.
Mm.
So you can see how this can be problematic. But and then beyond real life, because we've got the books and then we've got the real life, and then beyond real life, I am constantly battling my emotions to create because I'm a scaredy pants. We talked about this. I think it was like episode 5, something like that. I did a whole like theory of fear thing. I'm a scaredy pants. I'm scared to fail. I'm scared to get hurt. I'm scared of rejection. I so badly, so badly want to be good at this writing gig, right? And sometimes that want and that fear, they get in the way of the actual doing of the writing. So now, though, I'm getting better at recognizing when I am in this state and I work through my theory of fear and I get the work done. But it is not without huge amounts of effort. So I also kind of feel like I wound a little bit more easily, especially when I am physically tired or emotionally afraid. I just get my feelings hurt. And that's another thing too, where I have to take that initial jolt of emotion and say, is this valid? Is this real? You know? So it's kind of a constant fight and something that I have to deal with all the time. But if you kind of flip it and see something good in that, I guess the good thing is that this is a part of me that I have had to embrace. I spent a little bit more than a decade of my life suppressing emotions because it was just too hard, you know? But I found that when you block out the bad things, you also block out the good things. And I kind of became a two-dimensional character in my own life, which, as we know, if you're a writer, two-dimensional characters are bad things. So now I know that I'd rather have the ability to feel and to grow closer to the fictional characters that I love, mine and someone else's, to find common ground with real people, and to understand a new perspective and to make an observation that can start a dialogue. These are things that I can do because I have this quote unquote con in my life. And I'm cool with that.
I love that. I love that you shared that. And I think that that's so true. And, you know, what you said about it's worth it to feel, I mean, that's huge. You know, it really is. And when you are a writer, being able to be empathetic with your characters, guys, that's going to show. Your readers are going to see that, and your readers are going to love you for that, because it makes a huge difference. And readers can tell. So, yeah, that is huge. It's hard in the moment, but I love that you've flipped it. You've embraced it. That's really cool. So another con that we talked about, and we actually had a similar thought. We kind of came at it at a slightly different way. So that is the cluttered mind, okay? So creatives tend to have just all these little things, just, I don't know, I kind of envision them like bubbles just going everywhere in our heads at any given time, right? And so in my case, I think this often stops me from being productive, okay? And what happens, I'm thinking specifically about when I'm researching for a project. A lot of times I find so many amazing things and I want to dash off and grab this and that and the other, and I can so easily get sidetracked, right? Well, I have to understand, you know, when do I grab this inspiration when I'm working on something else, and when do I set it to the side until another time. And also understanding, and I know we've talked about this in a previous episode about when you are researching and you find something that can be useful for something else, take a moment, go ahead and put the link, jot a couple of notes that are going to help you remember what that is, and then set it to the side and then keep going. You can't let it distract you from what you have going on at the moment. But also just having so many ideas, those shiny new ideas that we talk about, are all over the place, and we want to dash after every one. And when we focus on all the bubbles floating around, we lose sight of the one that we're supposed to be holding carefully and taking care of, right? Okay, that might be a horrible metaphor or whatever that was, but it's what I got and what came out. So there you go. So tell us what came to mind for you when we were talking about the cluttered mind idea.
What happened with me, I thought about that I have too many what I consider great ideas. These are the ideas that kind of get my adrenaline pumping and my brain spinning, and the things that just really strike me as something that I would want to read or that I would want to do. So it kind of makes me sad to think of all the things that I will not do in my lifespan, which more emotions. So, but so here's the thing. I have 100 ideas that all sound amazing to me at this very moment. And I have a limited amount of time because responsibilities and, lifespan, those kind of things get in the way. I don't know which one is the most important because they all feel right. And so I would start none of them. And I would just let them all fester in my head and I would give them a dark, moist haven to grow into this beautiful fungi. And the fungi takes over. Okay, so maybe that metaphor is not a very good metaphor either, but that's just what happened, right?
I just think that it's funny that I went bubbles and you went fungi, because I feel like usually we would be flipped.
Well, I actually have this kind of obsession with fungi. I love to photograph fungi.
They're gorgeous. I am with you.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm weird. But you guys know that by now, right? We're 25, 26 episodes in. I don't even know anymore. So I feel like you guys know that. So I have festering fungi. And and so this is what would happen. I would get all of these ideas. I would love them all. And they would just keep running around in my head. And they would grow bigger and bigger. But then they would become overwhelming. And I would never start anything. Mm-hmm. So how do I flip that, right? And so I flip it in that God has given me an ability to come up with 100 ideas. That's amazing. So,
there you go.
And they're all quote unquote good. So no matter which one I pick, the possibility of a result that I'm proud of is super high. Mm-hmm. And the only way that I can fail at that is if I never begin. So this is kind of how I flipped it. It's I just try to start with something that is closest to finished, or I try to start with a smaller project when I feel this is the thing that I can get done the fastest. And that's how I choose. Or just one that just jumps out at you and it's you have to write this right now, immediately. That's kind of how I do that. If you focus on one project at a time, that's the way that I handle it too. It just works out better for me if I can just keep my focus on one thing and kind of put creative blinders on for a moment. As new ideas come, because they will, even if you've got the blinders on, you just write them down in a notebook or on a doc or something like that, in your phone, however you record your ideas. You write them down, but you don't divert one project's time to another idea. So you fall in love with the feeling of facing a challenge and succeeding. I think that's the trick with shiny new ideas or too many great ideas or whatever. You just fall in love with that feeling of conquering something. And hopefully you do that one idea at a time. So I think it'll make you happy to think back on all of the things that you actually did instead of regret all of the things that you cannot do because you never started.
That is a great tip. I love that. And another thing you said was if you can't you can't ever get to that idea if you don't begin it. Well, one of my other ones was you have to finish it. So that's another thing that I think creatives sometimes struggle with, is never reaching the finish line on a project. Maybe it's because you have all these shiny new ideas, that you keep chasing after, and so you never finish something. Or maybe it's just being overwhelmed by all these ideas that you have and not knowing where to begin, or whatever. I think we all probably have different things that keep us from reaching the finish line. Maybe it's those emotions again, those pesky emotions that we talked about. Maybe the fear, maybe, whatever it might be, or not wanting to let go. I think that can be a big thing too. But whatever it is, you have to get to that finish line. And I could not for the life of me find it today, but I always have a word of the year. And I believe it was last year, my word was completion. I think it was last year. Anyway, one of those years, because I got to thinking about how I had all of these things started and none of them were complete. And I wanted completion. I wanted something to be done. And so that's something that you just have to grab onto and just make it happen. There's no easy formula. There's no anything like that. You just have to commit. You have to make the plan, and you have to make it happen. So it's a part of learning to be my own project manager for me, which is something that, to be perfectly honest, is pretty easy for me. I've had experience with, basically being a project manager in a lot of different ways, some formally, professionally, and some not so formal, but I still have to be a project manager. Are you saying you are not good at doing that?
I'm terrible at it. I am terrible. If I could hire you to plan my projects, I would. It's so bad. Like, I have all of these grandiose plans, but I always overplan and overextend myself. And so by like the middle of it, I'm just like, my brain is exploding.
Yeah. That is probably the hardest part of it, is over planning, and I tend to do that too. I've had to get very honest with myself, because I want to be like, oh, I can do this in one day, and all the while in the back of my head it's going, Joy, no, you can't. Are you insane?
That's a week, Joy. A week.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've had to learn to listen to that voice that's back there that's a lot wiser than what's up here. So, yes. So there's that. And then there was one other thing that I think comes into play as a con sometimes for creatives. And that is because we love being creative. We love all the creative things. We want to sit down and we want to let our imagination run wild, and we want to just go with it. But we have responsibilities. We have those things that keep us grounded, whether it's a day job or it's responsibilities at home, or, whatever it is. We have to get them done, and we most likely at some point are going to end up resenting them, because we just want to be imaginative and have fun doing all the creative things. Yes. Okay, so here's the thing. We have to have a mind shift. Well, okay, I'm not going to say we. I had to have a mind shift. And it really...
Please tell me how to fix this, because I'm bitter.
Are you a bitter lemon? Oh, goodness.
Flip it for me, Joy. Flip it.
All right, let's see how this works. So mine came about actually thanks to our podcast and thanks to our creative weeks. Okay, so because a lot of weeks I don't actually get to sit down and create, like in the sense of the word that immediately comes to mind, right? Okay, I instead sometimes have to get creative with what my creative week was. And the way that I've learned to do that, you see what I did there, right? What I've learned to do is to see everything that I do through creative lenses. Okay, so for whatever's going on, I mean, just take this week for example. Okay, so I was really thinking through a lot of publishing things. Oh, is that our timer?
It is our timer.
Oh, and I'm almost done. That was perfect.
We're so close to.
Yay! Okay, so
Go
yes,
on.
so really quick to wrap
Go
up, and
on.
then we'll jump into the challenge. So, like for this week, I have spent a lot of time really thinking through the publishing process for this book, thinking about how this book needs to look in these final stages of getting it to publication. And so when I first thought of that, it didn't seem very creative, but you know what it is? Because I had to envision this book of ours in a completely different format, which, to be perfectly honest, guys, this format is pretty creative. We're not familiar with having seen this done in a book before. I'm not saying that it hasn't been, because, obviously we've never seen every book ever made, but it is different, okay? And so that in itself is creative, and so just trying to envision that became a creative thing when I thought about it through those creative lenses. So, there you go. That's what I got for you. Does that help?
It does. I'm just still sad that I have to do these things instead of all the things I want to do. But you know what? That is the petulant child that's inside of me as well. Like, that's not, that's not the grown, weathered, like, lesson learned, wise woman that I know that I am somewhere inside.
And we all get in that moment. We all have that child, so you're not alone.
Yeah. So we've got a QWERTY challenge though this week. Do you mind sharing it with our people?
Okay, so here is what we've got for you. Think through the cons that we shared with you today. Does one of these cons bother you the most? Does one of them really speak to you? Or can you think of another? Can you think of something that we haven't mentioned that is a bit of a con for being a creative? Now, once you get that figured out, what are some concrete steps that you can take this week to turn your cons into pros, to flip it? Okay, so start identifying these. Maybe even write them down. Once you're staring at that con in black and white, like you've written it there, sometimes for me that's easier to kind of see and think it through when I've written it out and I'm looking at it, So once you do that, begin to think of ways to take it and twist it into a pro for you, and write those down too. So you're going to write down the con, then you're going to figure out a way to flip it and write that down, and we would love to know what you discover and how you approach your creative cons differently from how we do, because we could probably learn from you guys too, and that would be amazing. We would love it. Just let us know what you decide to do this week and what you learned.
I love this challenge because it's all about like gratitude and being positive, and those are like two things that I'm super geeked about. So maybe you guys can be geeked about it too. That would be great.
So have a great week, and we will talk to you next week.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening until the end.
Seriously, you're a trooper.
Do you think QWERTY Writing Life is the bomb?
May, you just said the bomb.
Don't you censor me.
If you think QWERTY Writing Life rocks ice for real,
Oh my word.
please rate, review, and share us with others.
If you have questions about this week's episode or want to start a conversation, you can reach us by visiting QWERTYWritingLife.podbean.com.
We'll be back next week with more candid chats for you.